On Christmas Day, 1863, a man sat caring for his wounded son as a civil war tore his country apart. He heard the joyful sound of church bells proclaiming a peace that he did not see or feel. So he wrote down some words I think most of us can relate to, even to today. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Boylai Hobby Time, and Merry Christmas. Today I'm going to be making a diorama that fits inside a snow globe and talking about the story and inspiration behind it. When considering a project to do for Christmas, I began thinking through my favorite Christmas carols and Christmas hymns. There are just too many good ones to choose from. As I listened to my favorites, I recalled the story that I once heard of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I was drawn to make something related to his poem, Christmas Bells, which, when put to music, many of us know as the song, I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. And the Civil War soldiers that you see me assembling will make more sense in a minute. A while back, one of my patrons sent me some Civil War miniatures. All of them were either too small or in the wrong poses for this build, so I went with these from ICM. And these are the first models from ICM that I've ever assembled. Didn't know what to expect, but the quality was very nice and very little cleanup required. A combat scene wasn't the first thing I thought to put inside a snow globe, but I decided to do something outside the usual Christmas theme and focus on the somber reality of Christmas and the human condition. It's what Christmas exists in contrast to. It's honestly what makes Christmas matter in the first place. Someone who became very well acquainted with that contrast was Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, a poet, writer, and translator who lived during the 19th century. He was a devoted husband to his wife Frances and father of 6 kids with her. I'll continue his story in a minute. After assembling the minis, it was time to figure out the stand on which they would be posed. As you can see, the foam piece that came with the snow globe was a little too large to fit inside the glass. So I transferred the shape from this cool adjustable circle drawing tool, and I cut out some discs of XPS foam. Once I had 3 discs of foam cut out, I glued those together using foam-safe superglue, and I sanded the sides off camera to give them a nice even surface. And to give the characters a little bit more dynamic of a stage to stand on, I slightly angled the top by slicing off a thin wedge. Now that the ground had a nice subtle slope to it, it was time to cover that with some mud effects paste from AK Interactive. To give the earth a little bit more of a walked-on appearance, I cut the foot off another 1:35 scale miniature and glued that to a stick, which I stomped all over the base. After that was dry, it was time to add some grass. I spotted the top with some controlled random patches of static tack, which I feathered around by dabbing with my finger, and then I covered the whole thing with grass. It was very satisfying to shake off all the excess and see my nice organic grass patches appear. I wanted the grass to look a little trampled as well, so I brought back the boot stick, tamped that down, and after adding 2 patches of longer grass, I glued some battlefield details in place that came with the figures, including a bugle, a sword, and a musket. Once those had been glued in place, this little slice of Virginia soil was done and ready to be painted. So I broke out an old hobby mat and I put the figures on some painting handles. Before moving on to the painting and finishing the story, I'd like to highlight all of the December Art Challenge submissions sent in by my patrons, the theme of which was snow globes. Huge thank you and excellent job to everyone who participated. After 18 years of marriage, Henry's story took a tragic turn when his wife's dress caught on fire while he was napping. The account is that she was melting wax over a candle or had stepped over a lit match. Either way, she was fatally burned, and when Henry woke up, he tried to smother the fire using a rug, which didn't work, and then he tried to use himself, and he was badly burned. Doctors were called for, but unfortunately, Frances passed away the following morning, and Henry was unable to attend her funeral because of his own sustained injuries. Needless to say, he was heartbroken, had many difficult years of grieving that loss, grief becoming so bad at points that he thought he may be admitted to an asylum. About 2 years after his wife's passing, Henry received a letter informing him that his son Charles had been wounded in a battle in Virginia. Henry had not given his blessing to Charles to go to war and was shocked by the news and immediately set out for Washington, D.C., where his son was being transported for medical care. Henry, still in the midst of the sorrow over losing his wife, now found himself caring for his wounded son, not knowing whether Charles would survive. Now, if you've been paying attention to what's happening on screen, you may notice that I've only used one box of soldiers for this diorama, and they're all Confederates. I'm just going to paint 2 of them blue and the other 2 gray. That may bother some of you who look too closely and can tell the difference between the uniforms, but I think they're close enough that when painted blue or gray, most people won't be able to tell the difference, including myself. I also think there's something kind of symbolic about that, turning what could be friends, cousins, or even brothers against each other. Captures a bigger reality of the war. On Christmas morning, as Henry sat beside his son's bed, the bells of a nearby church began to ring, announcing Christmas. Carolers sang the words of the angels recorded in Luke chapter 2. Peace on earth, goodwill to men. Fully immersed in his own grief and suffering and witnessing the tragedy and pain in the world around him, as he reflected on the words that he heard from the carolers and the message that the bells proclaimed, an immense feeling of dissonance formed in his heart and in his mind. Being a believer himself, he understood what Christmas was supposed to mean, and yet when he looked around, he didn't see it, and he didn't feel it. So being a poet, he took those emotions and those feelings that he was wrestling with, and he put them down on paper and recorded these words. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And thought how as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along the unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Till ringing, singing on its way, the world revolved from night to day, a voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then from each black accursed mouth the cannon thundered in the south, and with the sound the carols drowned of peace on earth, goodwill to men. It was as if an earthquake rent the hearthstones of a continent, and made forlorn the households born of peace on earth, goodwill to men. And in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. If you're like me, Henry Longfellow's words, especially from that last stanza that I read, are very relatable. In fact, I think that they are reflective of most people's experience of the world, which has now only been amplified by our access to all the information all at once from all over the world. We see tragedies instantly on massive scales from everywhere. We can't escape it. From that all the way down to the personal hurt, the loss of loved ones. I don't think anybody can deny that this world is lacking peace. And like I said earlier, it is that lack of peace and the sinful condition that is so apparent that made the advent of Christ necessary in the first place. And Henry knew that. So he didn't end his poem in the present darkness, but he ended it in the hope to come. Then pealed the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men. Just like Longfellow didn't end his poem in darkness, I don't want this diorama to end just with this combat scene. I do want to be able to share the joy of Christmas and what I have found as well. So stick around to the end of the video to hear that. Otherwise, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Huge shout out as always to my patrons. You guys are the best. Have an awesome week, everyone. Merry Christmas. I'll see you next time. I know this is a crafting channel and most of you are here to watch the crafting and not hear me talk about my faith. I know that makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable. I do that Christmas and Easter. So if you're not into that, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, it's totally fine if you click away now. But I wouldn't be saying these things if I didn't believe them to be true. If I didn't think that they were truly beneficial to you. I am a very non-confrontational person naturally, and for many years I didn't talk about my faith at all on my YouTube channel. Even now, anticipating the comments that could pop up on this video or the fallout from talking about these things on a platform like this gives me that sick to my stomach feeling. But this is too good not to share. Because if it is true, it is the most important thing that anybody on earth can hear. I believe in the gospel of Jesus of Nazareth and his resurrection from the dead. And I don't believe it because of some amazing apologetic argument. Even back in the day when the apostles proclaimed this risen Savior, people scoffed at them then. It was just as unbelievable then as it is today. No, I believe it because I have been changed by it. My heart has changed. As I described in this video, we look around us and we see sin in the world everywhere. This is not a result of the wrong political or economic system. There's no amount of banding together that humans can do to solve these problems, as long as the hearts of people are unchanged. The only way to have a changed heart is to receive a new heart. To receive a new heart, you must be born again. What that means is you acknowledge your sinfulness. You have to recognize that the same sin that would cause someone with lots of power to commit a genocide to get what they want is the same sin that would cause you to lie to get what you want. The scale of the sin is different, but the heart that needs saving is not. And you must acknowledge your sinful heart and confess to God that you need a Savior, and He will save you. And He can save you because He sent Himself. He sent His Son in the form of man, fully God and fully man, to bear the sins of all people who would put their trust in Him. Jesus went to the cross. He took sin and death into the grave, and He rose again on the third day. After He rose, He ascended into heaven and sat down at the right hand of God, where He's seated to this day. And someday He'll return, and anybody who acknowledges Him as their Savior, He will acknowledge as saved. And in the meantime, you will grow in your love for Him, and you will grow in your ability to love like Him. You will love sacrificially and care for those around you, and the impact that you have on the world will be an outflowing of His love for you. I've experienced this personally, which is why I believe it. And every time I see it change the life of somebody around me, it just bolsters that belief. And my prayer today is that one of you listening, somebody out there, you may be on the fence, you may have never heard this before, my prayer would be that you would look into this. Go find a Bible, open it up, read what it has to say, and believe in the person of Jesus. If you would like to talk to me about this any further, send me an email at the email address in my bio. I'd love to chat more.